Two-step equations. Simplifying. We use order of operations and we multiply and divide before we add and subtract. But when solving, we work backwards. And we add and subtract before we multiply and divide. So let's go ahead and look at an example. Example 1. A current of 16 amps is flowing through two 12 AWG conductors that are 7 feet long that have a resistance of 0.3 ohms. What is the power loss of these conductors? Use the equation below to solve. So we know we have our current, which is our I, and then we have our resistance, which is 0.3. So R is 0.3. So let's go ahead and find our P then. So we're going to have to go ahead and plug this in. So we have P equals, then we have 16 squared, and then we have 0.3. So the first thing we're going to do is deal with our exponent, as that's part of our order of operations to first deal with. So we have 16 times 16, because that's what the exponent is just 2 of 16s being multiplied together, which is equal to 256. Then our resistance is 0.3, so we'll just multiply it by 0.3, which gives us 76.8. So P is equal to 76.8, and power is measured in watts. So this would be our solution. So let's go look at another example. Example 2. A current of 2.5 amps is flowing through an electrical device that uses 215 watts. Use the equation below to solve for the resistance of the device. So we're using the same equation, but instead we're solving for R, for resistance. I, which is our current, which is 2.5, and we know that power is equal to 215. So let's go ahead and plug this in. So we have 215, which is equal to I squared, which is 2.5 squared, times R. Now, what our first step will be is we're going to multiply this out. So let's get our calculators out. I'm going to go 2.5 times 2.5, which is equal to 6.25. Let's go ahead and rewrite this. So now we've dealt with our exponent, and now we just have 6.25. And so to get R all by itself, we need to go ahead and divide both sides by 6.25. So if we divide by 6.25, so we just put a division bar over it on both sides, this 6.25 over 6.25 is just then 1. And then now we need to do 215 divided by 6.25, which is equal to 34.4 ohms. And this would be the resistance. So let's look at another example. Solve for x. Let's go ahead and rewrite this. We have 3x plus 4 is equal to 13. Now, when solving, remember we work backwards. So we're going to add and subtract first before we multiply or divide. So the first thing we do is we see that this is just a number and this is just a number. So we can go ahead and subtract this 4, because whatever we do to one side, we do to the other, to get rid of it on the left-hand side. This gets x, this term right here, all by itself on the left-hand side. So we have 3x plus 0. So we don't even have to write it, but we will for just purposes to show that 4 minus 4 is 0. Now 13 minus 4 is 9. So now we have, we'll just go ahead and rewrite this just as 3x is equal to 9. So now that we've done our subtraction, we can now go ahead and divide. Because right here, this is a multiplication. This 3 times this x will give us 9. And so to find x, we're going to go ahead and divide on both sides. Now when we divide on the left-hand side, we get rid of it, and this just becomes a 1, because 3 divided by 3 is just 1. Now x is equal to the 9 divided by 3, which then is 3. If you don't remember, we can always use our calculator and see that it's 3. So x is equal to 3. So let's do another example. Example 4. Solve for x. X over 3 minus 9 is equal to 13. So let's go ahead and rewrite this. Now our first step is to add or subtract before we multiply or divide when solving. So we're going to go ahead and look at this minus 9, and we're going to add. We're going to add to both sides, because whatever we do to one side, we do to the other. And this will help us get x all by itself on the left-hand side. So this just becomes 0. And we'll just bring down this x minus 3. Now we have 13 plus 9, which is equal to 22. So let's go ahead and rewrite this now, because we can just get rid of the 0. So now we have x over 3, which is equal to 22. Now to undo division, which is x over 3, we're going to go ahead and multiply it by 3 on both sides. This gets rid of the 3 here. This just becomes a 1. Now x is equal to 22 times 3, which is equal to 66. Now, if you forget, or it's just a number that's just a little bit harder to do in your head, go ahead and use your calculator, and you can also confirm this way too, which shows that x is equal to 66. Now, if you're not sure if you did this right, the best way to check your answers is to go back and plug in this x equals 66 into our equation. So if we do that, we're going to go ahead and check. So we have 66 over 3 minus 9 equals 13. And so we need to get 13 on the left-hand side for this to be correct. So we have 66. We're going to divide by 3, which just gets us to 22. Then we go minus 9, which is equal to 13, which is what we're hoping. So now we have 22 minus 9, which is equal to 13. So we know that we did this right, as we have 13 on both sides of the equal sign. So this is the correct solution.